This picture is called After a Game of Lawn Tennis. It was painted in 1916 by the British artist Fairlie Harmar and is in the collection of Birmingham City Art Gallery. It shows an interior, a light, sunlit bedroom. There is only one figure, and she dominates the canvas. A girl or young woman, lying across the bed in an attitude of abandon, legs drawn up, one arm thrown back, the other fallen limply by her side. Her face is flushed, and her eyes are closed. She is wearing a dress with vertical blue and white stripes, a dark sash wound around the waist. She has unbuttoned the top of her dress, and her white chemise can be seen underneath. Her straw hat, the same colour as her hair and decorated with flowers, lies by her side where it has fallen from her hand. She seems to have thrown herself down in exhaustion after, as the title explains, a tiring game of lawn tennis. It is an image of abandonment, of repose, but also of active, modern female life. Fairlie Harmar was born in Weymouth, Dorset, in 1876 and died in London in 1945. This photograph shows her in her robes as a peer of the realm. She married the 7th Viscount Harberton in 1932 and became Viscountess Harberton, although she did not like to be called that. In the 1890s, she studied at the Slade School of Art in London, where women were taught on the same basis as men. While at the Slade, she met Ethel Walker, who had been an art student in the 1880s and was already established as an artist, but had come to the Slade in the 1890s for one of several periods of further study. Walker became a friend and an important mentor figure for Harmar, who even became a neighbour of hers in Cheyne Walk, Chelsea. Harmar went on to establish a quietly successful career as a painter of landscapes, interiors with and without figures, still life and genre scenes, and occasional portraits. She was associated with the New English Art Club, becoming a full elected member in 1917, and took part in their group exhibitions, as well as having shows of her own in various London galleries. During the First World War she was not an official war artist, but painted scenes related to the war effort, such as this view of Women's Royal Air Force personnel in 1918. The Slade was known for the French approach of its teaching, emphasizing drawing, careful observation of nature, and the life class. Much of the art produced by the New English Art Club also displayed a strong French influence, and Harmar's work, particularly her landscapes and interiors, reflected these French influences, light-filled canvases with vibrant colours, and an emphasis on immediate sensory engagement rather than precise perspective or careful delineation of form. However, early in her career at least, she seems to have been quite experimental at times, to judge from a review of her work in 1917, praising her painting of Battersea Factories for presenting its dull and grimy subject in a state of glorious transfiguration, and calling her a futurist on the strength of it. Harmar's surviving work is rather more conventional than Battersea Factories seems to have been. What a shame, the painting now appears to be lost. At the Grosvenor Galleries in 1923, Fairlie Harmar shared the venue with shows by Harold Knight, Charles Cundall, and Horace Mann Livens, who were all known, as Harmar was, for landscapes, interiors, and still life, with occasional portraits. She exhibited 30 paintings. The Telegraph praised her work as remarkably successful, producing effects of a surprising, perhaps even excessive, brilliancy, but criticized its lack of structure and its undue concern with surface glitter rather than depth and seriousness. This was a common criticism of the French or Anglo-French style of painting. The Observer took the same line, enjoying her admirable management of light and of sparkling colour, but criticizing the lack of substance in her work and her supposed failures in form, volume, and perspective. As an aside, you will have noticed that the Observer refers to Miss Fairlie Harmar, but that the Daily Telegraph assumes she is a man and calls her Mr. This happened to her a lot. Her unusual first name gave no hint as to her sex, while nothing about her work suggested to contemporaries that it had been produced by a woman rather than a man. Reviewing the New English Art Club exhibition in January 1925, the Architect's Journal made this point explicitly, classing Fairlie Harmar among the women exhibitors with nothing to show in their works that they are women's. Harmar herself did not seem to mind this. She told the director of the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool in 1917 that she did not want her sex revealed, because it was often helpful in terms of sales and critical reactions for a woman artist to be thought to be a man. While in 1932, at the time of her marriage, she dismissed any misunderstandings that had arisen on account of her ambiguous name as amusing. Fairlie Harmar painted after a game of lawn tennis in 1916, so it is a relatively early work in her career. The Birmingham Art Gallery online catalogue gives its date as 1923-4, but this is incorrect, and comes from the date the painting was donated, not when it was painted. It was acquired by the Contemporary Art Society in 1916, and donated to the gallery in 1924. It is painted in oils on canvas, and is not a particularly large picture. This is the typical size for Harmar's work. She rarely worked on a large scale. The overall impression of the picture is of blues and creamy whites, with red-brown, straw gold and yellow, and touches of red and pink, a harmonious blend of tones, enlivened by scattered, vibrant touches of bright colour. The room, which, like some of the furniture and accessories in the picture, can be found in several paintings by Harmar, is from her house in Chelsea, where she had her studio. We don't know anything about the young, blonde-haired model in this painting, but she appears in other works by Harmar. Hock Cup, in which she pours hock from a bottle into a jug. Morning Post, in which she lies in bed with a cup of tea and her letters beside her. And Breakfast in Bed, which is self-explanatory. All three works are undated. The latter two have in the past been given dates in the 1930s, but that is no more than auction house guesswork, and they are certainly from the same period of Harmar's career as our lawn tennis painting, around 1916. Earlier we heard critics complaining that Harmar's work lacked structure and was weak on form and perspective, among other things. There is some justification for these criticisms, but in the case of this picture they would be misplaced. Here structure, composition, and form are very carefully considered. The picture's viewpoint is low, alongside the girl, and she is closely framed, increasing the sense of intimacy. This low and unusually angled viewpoint, and the flat plane of the wall behind, cut into by the shape of the bedhead and the girl's raised legs, reveal the influence of Oriental and particularly Japanese painting conventions, which were very much associated with French post-impressionism. We saw Harmar being criticized for weaknesses in perspective, but this painting involves the viewer in an apprehension of space that does not depend upon the conventions of linear perspective, but on overlapping forms. The wall of the room, with its mouldings and gold-framed picture, parallel with the picture plane, closes off any great depth of view, creating a shallow space that is congested with a complicated assemblage of forms and patterns. The girl in her blue and white striped dress, with her hat and her straw-blonde hair, and the bed she lies on, with its curved headboard, with floral cushioning, and a blue counterpane on top of white sheets. The form of the girl's body, defined as much by the stripes of her dress as by contouring light and shadow, draws the viewer's eye into the picture from bottom right to upper left, from her face to her raised knees, and then towards the centre of the canvas. In the centre, however, is no particular point of focus. just empty space in front of the enclosing wall, framed by the triangle formed by her raised legs on the left, and another triangle formed by her right arm, propped on the headboard on the right. A painting of a young female subject in such a posture, particularly with the element of relaxation and fatigue after physical exertion, has voyeuristic and seductive potential, and many male artists might have treated such a subject in such a way. But here any such suggestion is shut off by the lack of engagement, even implied engagement, between the girl and the viewer. Rather than meeting the viewer's gaze, she keeps her eyes closed. Rather than looking out of the canvas towards the spectator, she turns her face inwards and away, symbolizing the self-enclosed world in which she exists. She is not making herself available for the pleasure of others, but enjoying on her own terms the pleasures of exercise, post-exercise fatigue, and the experience of possessing and exercising autonomy over a young and healthy body. For Harmar, who was an active supporter of the suffragist movement, there is certainly a message here about the rights, freedoms, and opportunities that should rightly be claimed by modern women, breaking free of the conventions and restrictions of the past. In this context, tennis had a particular significance. Not only was it a very popular sport in the early 20th century, it was as open to women as it was to men, and particularly for girls and young women it was seen as a healthy and vigorous form of exercise. This is of course not the tennis of competitions and star players, of national and international tournaments. This is lawn tennis as a domestic recreation, the tennis of the garden party, of the social gathering with family, friends, and neighbors. In an essay he wrote in the 1870s at the beginning of the lawn tennis craze, and which was republished in his 1905 collection English Hours, Henry James wrote about the popularity of the game with the nice girls of county society. Those girls, he wrote, would come back to the house after their games of tennis, flushed a little and a little dishevelled, which is precisely the condition of the girl in Fairlie Harmar's painting. But, although this painting can be classed as a tennis picture, the artist is not interested in the game, but in the girl. Although it is essential to the scenario of the picture that she has been taking part in lawn tennis rather than, say, croquet or archery, nothing about this picture would necessarily say lawn tennis to you, if the title did not literally say it. There is no racket, no ball, no view through a window onto a tennis court. Just the girl, flushed and fatigued, lying back on her bed, her eyes closed, lost in her own feelings, sensations, and thoughts.